perfect. That, in a way, they're making you a sacred cow. I know how much you like that.
Jack Nicholson isn't just another Hollywood legend. He is the legend, the master of madness, the king of controlled chaos. But that wild brilliance didn't just appear out of thin air. It was built through years of obsession, discipline, and deep admiration for men he once called his rivals, and maybe even his enemies. Now, at 88, Jack's finally spilled the truth. The 6 actors who shaped his genius. The ones who pushed him, scared him, and defined his craft. Once you hear these names, you'll never look at Jack Nicholson the same way again. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button. It helps a ton. All right, let's kick this off with number 1, Robert De Niro, the man who became Jack Nicholson's blueprint. Let's start with the real peak, the one actor Jack respects more than anyone else in Hollywood. Robert De Niro. Yeah, you heard that right. Not Brando, not Pacino, De Niro. And when Jack talks about him, you can feel the weight in his words. It's not flattery, it's awe, maybe even fear. He once said, "De Niro says more with silence than others say with monologues." That line says everything. In a business where everyone's shouting to be seen, Jack bows down to the man who barely speaks. De Niro isn't just talented, he's the standard. A quiet storm that doesn't need to explode to shake the ground. Jack watched him disappear into Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, and Raging Bull, each role pulling him deeper into the madness. Jack once joked, "You don't act with De Niro, you hang on and hope the moment doesn't swallow you." But behind that laugh, there was real respect, maybe even intimidation. De Niro made truth look effortless, and that terrified even someone as fearless as Jack. They barely shared the screen, but destiny still linked them. When The Departed was being cast, the studio first wanted De Niro as mob boss Frank Costello. He turned it down, so Jack took it. And what followed was one of the wildest, most unhinged performances of his career. Later, Jack admitted something chilling. He said it felt like Bob's ghost was still on set, and he meant it. De Niro's presence haunted that movie, hanging in the air like gravity. That's why Jack calls Robert De Niro the blueprint. Even after 50 years ruling Hollywood, Jack still swears the greatest actor alive is the one who barely says a word. But next up is a whole different storm. The fire Jack could never tame. His second favorite name burns brighter than the rest: Al Pacino. When Jack talks about Pacino, his voice almost sparks. You can feel that energy crackling through every word. He once said, "Al doesn't play characters, he erupts into them." And man, that line couldn't be more true. Jack and Al rose through the same explosive decade, the 1970s, a wild time when actors were out to prove that truth mattered more than polish, fame, or rules. Nicholson was out there tearing down walls with 5 Easy Pieces and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, while Pacino was redefining intensity with The Godfather and Dog Day Afternoon. Jack couldn't look away. He was mesmerized by how Pacino walked into every scene like his life was on the line. His eyes, wired with danger. His energy, pure electricity. During a panel in the early 2000s, Jack dropped a gem. He said, "Al has one of the greatest faces in film. You see every thought happen on it, like lightning under the skin. That's raw admiration right there." Jack envied how Pacino could make emotion visible, like it was alive under his skin. That's what Jack loved, the honesty, the fire, the chaos that felt real. Even though they were never cast as brothers, Jack always said they felt like family, bound by ambition, hunger, and that wild drive to go further than anyone else. Every role Pacino took pushed the limits of what acting could even be. Corruption in Serpico, obsession in Scarface, guilt in Heat. Every film hit like a punch straight to the soul. Jack once told a friend, "Pacino reminds me why acting still scares me." Coming from Nicholson, that's the ultimate compliment, because if Jack admits fear, you know the man on the other side is legendary. Even today, Nicholson says Pacino's performances bruise. They leave marks that never fade. They don't die when the credits roll. They echo long after the screen goes black. And then came the one who made Jack stop talking. The man whose truth changed him forever. Dustin Hoffman. The only actor who could make Jack Nicholson pause mid-sentence and admit he'd just witnessed genius. When Nicholson first watched The Graduate, he said the screen felt alive, like anxiety itself had a heartbeat. When Jack first saw Dustin Hoffman on screen, he was stunned. Hoffman looked like a man falling apart in slow motion. Jack couldn't look away. He once said, "He acts like he can't afford to lie," and that line stuck with him for life. Years later, Jack told a friend that Hoffman's honesty hit him harder than any polished Hollywood performance ever could. They came up in the same wild decade, both clawing for respect in a business that didn't make room for truth-tellers. Hoffman found his rhythm in Midnight Cowboy and Kramer vs. Kramer, while Nicholson blew up with Easy Rider and 5 Easy Pieces. Both were chasing the same goal: to make every second on screen feel real. During an old roundtable talk, Jack joked, "Dustin rehearses the word hello until it sounds like it grew up somewhere." He laughed saying it, but everyone could tell. That wasn't mockery, it was pure admiration. Hoffman's obsession with detail went beyond perfection. It was madness in the best way. He'd tear a single line apart until it bled truth, and Jack loved that. It fascinated him. Hoffman gave vulnerability a new face: raw, exposed, fearless. Nicholson studied that kind of courage and realized something huge. Fear could drive a performance further than ego ever could. Hoffman's shadow stayed with Jack through every role that demanded honesty instead of glamour. Out of all the legends he respected, Hoffman stands out as the man who turned nerves into power, who made truth look dangerous. And then came number 4, Paul Newman, the calm Jack spent his whole life chasing. Everyone in Hollywood admired Paul Newman, but Jack's reason was different, and it shocked people. It had nothing to do with the man's looks, his fame, or his fortune. What hooked Jack was the quiet danger in Newman's silence. He once said, "Newman was the only actor who could make silence feel dangerous." Imagine that. Doing nothing and still holding everyone's attention. Jack once told a friend that when he first watched The Hustler, he was hypnotized by how Newman barely moved, barely spoke, yet every second felt alive. Nicholson built his career on chaos, shouting, breaking rules, tearing walls down. But Newman showed him a whole different kind of power, control, power that didn't need noise. They ran in the same Hollywood circles during the late 70s, and every time Jack brought up Newman, his tone changed. He'd say things like, "Newman lived like a man who knew exactly who he was." And that calm terrified Jack, because he didn't have it. Newman could act, race cars, run charities, and walk out of a room without leaving a trace of smoke behind. Jack once put it perfectly. He carried fame the way a good driver handles speed. He never lost control. That line says everything. To Jack, Newman was proof that real strength doesn't need to scream. It just stands there, steady, unstoppable, and real. Paul Newman reminded Jack that control could be its own rebellion on screen. He burned cold, sharp, quiet, and powerful. Jack studied that style like scripture. You can catch traces of Newman's cool precision years later in A Few Good Men and The Pledge. In Jack's own words, he made being great look simple, and that's the hardest trick in the business. And that line hits deeper than it sounds. Jack often used Newman's calm like a secret weapon, a quiet blueprint he slipped into his own chaotic characters. But if Newman taught him control, the next man taught him chaos itself. Marlon Brando, the god next door who shaped a legend. Every actor has a god, and for Jack Nicholson, that god lived right next door. Literally, 2 of Hollywood's biggest forces, side by side on Mulholland Drive, separated by just a fence and 1,000 unforgettable stories. Jack once said, "Brando changed everything. He made the rest of us rethink what we were doing." In the 1980s, Jack told a friend that Brando didn't just act, he shifted the atmosphere. Jack would sit for hours rewatching On the Waterfront and A Streetcar Named Desire, studying every tiny flicker, a shrug, a whisper, a smirk that could break a scene in half. Those little gestures, that quiet chaos. That's what Nicholson built his own style on. When they finally worked together on the Missouri Breaks in 1976, the set itself became Hollywood legend. Brando would vanish from rehearsals, rewrite scenes, and even change his marks mid-take. Everyone else panicked, but not Jack. He stayed calm, watched, and adapted. Later, he called it the most unpredictable job of my life, but deep down, you could tell he loved every second of it. Off camera, their friendship was just as wild, swinging between deep talks, bizarre favors, and long silences that said more than words ever could. Brando once borrowed Jack's house just for privacy, and Jack didn't hesitate. He handed him the keys. That's real respect right there. When Brando passed in 2004, Jack was crushed. He sent flowers, closed his blinds, and didn't leave the house for days. It wasn't just grief. It was like losing a piece of his artistic soul. Brando had taught him that rebellion could be sacred. Jack once said, "He was the storm that cracked open the sky for the rest of us." And honestly, you can still feel Brando's spirit in every dangerous, unpredictable role Jack has ever played. It's like his ghost is standing just off camera, daring Jack to take it one step further. And finally, the last name on Jack's list, the man he saved for the end because it meant the most. Gene Hackman, the working-class truth Jack never forgot. When Jack said Hackman's name, he didn't grin. He nodded, like one craftsman recognizing another. He said, "That guy never missed." What drew Nicholson to Hackman wasn't fame, wasn't glamour, wasn't legend. It was honesty. Hackman was real, raw, and grounded. Proof that you don't need fireworks to shake an audience, just truth that hits hard and stays. Gene Hackman walked onto a movie set like a man clocking in after a long factory shift. No ego, no show, just pure focus. It was like he was already inside the story before the cameras even rolled. Jack used to call him the blue-collar genius because everything about Hackman felt earned. Their paths crossed countless times at premieres, award shows, and Hollywood gatherings, and every single time, Jack couldn't help but admire how Hackman could vanish into a character without ever losing his rhythm. In The French Connection, Jack saw raw instinct. In Unforgiven, he saw quiet pain. And in Crimson Tide, he saw something even rarer, control under pressure, pure power wrapped in calm. Each one of those performances reminded Jack of something he feared was disappearing, the kind of truth-driven acting that Hollywood doesn't make anymore. Behind the scenes, Jack once told a friend, "If I ever needed someone to carry a film with me, Hackman would be my first call." And it wasn't because they were the same, it was because Hackman made truth contagious. Jack said, "He walks in, and suddenly everyone else stops pretending." That's how real Hackman was. He didn't act like the part, he became it. And when he retired in 2004, Jack took it hard. He said that day, "The business lost a heartbeat." You could feel that loss in his words, genuine, heavy, and full of respect. That's why Nicholson ended his list with him, because Hackman represented the one thing that mattered most: honesty. 6 names, 6 legends, 6 mirrors reflecting the mind of a man who redefined what acting is. Each one helped carve Jack Nicholson into the force he became, wild, fearless, and forever chasing the truth that burns beneath the spotlight. Jack Nicholson once said that every great actor leaves fingerprints on your soul, and when you look at the 6 men who shaped him, you can see those marks all over his career. Each one carved something different into him. De Niro gave him focus, Pacino gave him fire, Hoffman gave him honesty, Newman gave him calm, Brando gave him rebellion, and Hackman gave him truth. Put them all together, and you get the chaos and control that became Jack Nicholson. Even in his late years, that energy never really left. Friends say when Jack rewatched old clips of his own work, he didn't talk about fame or awards. He'd talk about craft. He'd pause scenes, point at the screen, and say things like, "That's where I tried to steal a little Brando," or "That's silence, that's pure Newman." He studied himself like he was still learning, still dissecting what made those performances tick. He often said that acting wasn't about pretending, it was about remembering. Remembering the people who scared you, moved you, and pushed you to be better. That's why he never stopped talking about those 6 names. They weren't just inspirations, they were ghosts that followed him from set to set, whispering through every line he ever spoke. During interviews in his later years, reporters noticed that when Jack mentioned their names, his tone changed. It wasn't nostalgia, it was respect mixed with something deeper, almost spiritual. He'd grin and say, "Those guys made me honest." And you could tell he meant it. Because every lesson they gave him showed up somewhere in his work. Whether it was the quiet menace of The Shining, the volcanic confidence of A Few Good Men, or the lonely reflection of About Schmidt, Jack once joked that if all 6 of them had ever been in one movie together, he'd have retired on the spot. "What's left to prove?" he said, laughing. But behind that laugh was truth. Those men were his Mount Rushmore, his measure of greatness, the unreachable line he kept chasing. Even after decades away from the spotlight, Jack's house in the Hollywood Hills is said to still echo with reminders of them. Framed photos from old sets, movie posters covered in his notes, scribbled quotes like, "Truth first, acting second." And every name from that list appears somewhere in those walls, a silent reminder of the journey he never stopped walking. In the end, Nicholson's story isn't just about one man's fame. It's about how 6 legends built another legend. How pieces of De Niro's silence, Pacino's fire, Hoffman's courage, Newman's balance, Brando's chaos, and Hackman's truth fused into something uniquely Jack. He didn't just watch them, he absorbed them. And decades later, you can still see it. That flicker of De Niro's stillness in his stare, that trace of Brando's danger in his grin, that echo of Pacino's fire in his words. 6 men shaped him, but Jack Nicholson turned their lessons into legacy. Jack Nicholson's story isn't just a timeline of movies, it's a map of influence, built by 6 men who turned raw talent into timeless art. Each one left something inside him that never faded, and that's what made Jack, even in his silence, larger than life. When you trace his filmography, you can literally feel those fingerprints. The stillness from De Niro, the way Jack could say everything without a single word. The fire from Pacino, that wild spark that turned dialogue into electricity. The truth from Hoffman, the honesty that made pain look human. The calm from Newman, that control that made chaos look effortless. The rebellion from Brando, that refusal to follow anyone's script. And the grit from Hackman, that working-class truth that grounded every performance. Together, those 6 influences became Jack's secret formula. And what's wild is, he never stopped crediting them. He'd say things like, "Everything I know about this craft, I learned by watching giants." Even when Hollywood crowned him a legend, Jack still looked up to them like a student staring at the masters. That humility, hidden beneath his swagger, was part of what made him unstoppable. People close to Jack say that whenever he visited old film sets or watched reruns of his classics, he'd lean back, smirk, and whisper lines from his heroes under his breath, a private salute to the ones who shaped him. That connection never died. It was personal, deep, and real. A reminder that greatness doesn't come from isolation. It comes from inspiration. And now, looking back, those 6 names form the core of Nicholson's legacy. The real story behind the grin, the madness, and the myth. They built him, guided him, and challenged him to keep pushing until every frame felt alive. That's why even decades later, every time his face flashes across a screen, you can still feel all 6 of them watching through him. Jack once said, "You don't outgrow your influences, you grow into them." That line says it all. Because he didn't just follow their path, he built his own from their fire. And now new generations are studying him the same way he studied them. It's a full circle. Legends creating legends. So next time you watch a Jack Nicholson film and see that wild grin or that chilling silence, know that you're not just watching one man. You're watching the echoes of De Niro, Pacino, Hoffman, Newman, Brando, and Hackman, all fused into one unforgettable legacy. If you loved diving into the mind behind Hollywood's greatest rebel, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and keeps stories like this alive. Let me know which of Jack's influences surprised you the most. And as always, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.